Make the body transparent. Have you ever heard these words before? These are the words we'll be discussing this time. These are the words the culprit used to describe his method, making the body disappear as much as possible. He finally chopped the victim's flesh into dice-sized pieces and burned the bones until they turned to powder. And he did it carefully, taking his time with each and every bone as far as we know. But 4 precious lives were lost and none of the bodies were ever found, so it was called the serial murder case without bodies. There are even rumors that there were more victims, even though there's no evidence in this case. The number of people he told acquaintances he killed was over 30. A well-known dog lover in the industry planned the perfect crime. This case is extremely brutal, so please be advised before viewing the Saitama dog lover serial murder case. On January 5, 1995 in Kumagaya City, Saitama Prefecture, he was running a pet shop called Africa Kennel. Minamoto Sekine, 53, and his ex-wife and co-owner Hiroko Kazama, 38, were linked to the suspicious disappearance of 4 people in the area. They were arrested as suspects. They were taken into custody. In January 1994, a suspect's arrest in the separate Osaka dog lover serial murder case was reported, which became the trigger. Media rumors claimed similar incidents happened in Saitama Prefecture, and police had monitored the situation for years. News reports led to their eventual arrest. Yes, both of them. They often used fraudulent business practices and frequently had issues with customers. They'd promised to buy puppies at a high price, sell a pair of dogs for more than their worth, and when the puppies arrived, they would find fault and haggle or refuse to buy the puppies at all. Doing things like that, it was only natural that complaints would arise from the very beginning. This case began because of that trouble. Afterward, their violent tendencies, especially Sekine's, became clear as they kept committing crimes. Furthermore, everyone who became a victim in this case had some connection with them. Because there had already been a series of disappearances around Sekine 9 years before the first incident occurred, the police suspected them from the beginning. However, there were neither bodies nor physical evidence. Ultimately, an Africa Kennel executive cooperated with the case. A man named Yamazaki confessed to the crime, which led to the arrest of the 2 and their eventual admission of guilt. After that, both of them were sentenced to death. Though the case was closed, some claimed Kazama was innocent, and due to complex circumstances, the truth behind these incidents may still be unclear. How do you all feel about this? Is the truth somewhere within that? Now, here are the details of the case. First, let's talk about the backgrounds of the 2 people and how they met. Sekine was born in Chichibu City, Saitama Prefecture. He ran a pet shop and worked in the animal business. Even back then, he repeatedly engaged in shady business practices, had connections with gangs, and was even threatened by those gangs. Because of this, he was feared by the local residents. He was even more disliked than that, but his real talent in handling pets and wild animals made him an exceptional breeder. That's right, there was a time when Siberian Huskies were a big trend, and he actually started it. In the industry, he was a bit of a celebrity. He opened a pet shop called Africa Kennel in Kumagaya City, Saitama Prefecture, on a certain day in 1982. Kazama from Kumagaya City in Saitama Prefecture was a well-bred young lady who loved dogs and lived a normal life before meeting him. She worked as a nursery school teacher and studied surveying. Among other things, she married another man at a young age and had 2 children. However, she later got divorced. It was when she visited the pet shop Africa Kennel that their relationship began. In 1983, they bonded over their love of dogs. About a year after they met, they got married and started running this Africa Kennel together. And then, in 1986, the world entered the so-called bubble era. Real estate and stock values rose quickly, making all of Japan livelier. They believed in the economic boom, borrowed money, and built a luxurious kennel that was also their home. The total amount of their debt had reached about 140 million yen. At that time, Yamazaki, whom I mentioned earlier, visited Africa Kennel. He ended up working as an executive at the company. However, during that time, the bubble economy burst. As a result, the store's sales dropped, and not only was it difficult to repay debts, but it also became hard to make a living. As a result, they used underhanded tactics and deceived customers to maximize profits through dishonest business practices. Even so, their business gradually became more and more difficult. They divorced in January 1993 for tax reasons. However, even after the divorce, they continued living the same way as before. On April 20, 1993, the first incident finally occurred. The victim was Mr. Akio Kawasaki, who was 39 years old at the time. He visited Africa Kennel to buy a dog. He met Sekine and bought a dog worth several 100,000 yen for 11 million yen. After learning the truth from an acquaintance, he demanded the money back. Sekine and Kazama, unable to return it, decided to kill him. Sekine claimed he would repay the money. They lured Mr. Kawasaki to a Kumagaya city garage, disguised poison as a supplement, made him drink it, and killed him. After that, they appeared at the garage and threatened Yamazaki, who was shocked, saying, "Do you want to end up like this too?" They forced Yamazaki to become an accomplice in the crime. Sekin transported the body to Yamazaki's house and dismembered it. Yamazaki left Ms. Kawasaki's car at Tokyo Station after it was at the garage to make it seem like she disappeared on her own. When Yamazaki got home, the body was already dismembered beyond recognition. Burned bone fragments and belongings were taken to a nearby forest. On April 21, the family, concerned by Ms. Kawasaki's sudden disappearance, filed a missing person report. Initially, it seemed like a runaway, but on the 30th, the car was found abandoned in Tokyo. After Ms. Kawasaki's car was discovered, the prefectural police suspected foul play and began an investigation. Based on the family's statements, the police found Ms. Kawasaki had issues with Sekine, leading them to focus on him. They then learned that several people connected to them 9 years earlier had also disappeared suspiciously. The police began surveillance and tailing of Sekine and Yamazaki. However, another incident happened right under police supervision since the Kawasaki incident. 3 months later, on the night of July 21, they visited Endo, a 51-year-old acting Yakuza boss connected to their group that day. Actually, this man named Endo. He suspected that they were involved in Mr. Kawasaki's case and threatened them. He said, "I'll stay silent if you give me money and the land deed." They feared losing everything at this rate. At this point, Sekine and Kazama decided to kill Endo. They pretended to comply with Endo's demands, and just like with Kawasaki-san, they made him drink poison and killed him. Furthermore, Endo's driver was also involved. A man named Wakui, who was 21 years old at the time, was also poisoned in the same way to keep him silent. In the same way, same method, all. Safety. On the afternoon of August 26, 3 months later, Seikin asked a 54-year-old employee's mother to invest in Africa Kennel, put her in his car and drove to her house. In fact, Seikin and this woman had a physical relationship and he found the relationship troublesome. Seikin planned to take all her assets and kill her. When they reached the house, he took nearly all her assets, around 2.7 million yen. After that, Seikin poisoned her just like before and killed her. In the early hours of the 27th, the burned bones and belongings were once again thrown into a nearby river. Even though they were clearly suspicious, the police couldn't just do nothing just because there was no physical evidence. The police warned people believed to be acquaintances of Sekine not to meet with them alone under any circumstances. They also tried to arrest them on separate charges of fraud for defaulting on debt payments. However, since there was no physical evidence related to the murders, it was judged that proving the case would be difficult and the arrests were put on hold. There was no doubt they were suspicious, but the frustrating period continued where the police couldn't move forward with an arrest. However, on January 26, 1994, as mentioned at the beginning, when a suspect in the case that occurred in Osaka was arrested, a similar case was found in Saitama as well. Media rumors spread about a similar incident, and by mid-month, the press gathered at Africa Kennel. They put one acquaintance forward as their spokesperson, and through that person pleaded their innocence. That person, a former self-defense force officer, seemed knowledgeable about the case. However, later on September 22, he was arrested on suspicion of fraud. After that, finally, a clue to solving the case appeared. This person admitted to being involved in part of the series of incidents. Furthermore, he also stated that Yamazaki was involved in the case. On October 17th, the police questioned Yamazaki. However, Yamazaki denied any involvement in the case and disappeared with his wife. However, Yamazaki's wife embezzled about 50 million yen. After the crime was found, an arrest warrant was issued and a search began. On November 24th, Yamazaki's wife was arrested. Yamazaki fled but later turned himself in. During questioning starting December 3rd, he confessed to the serial cases. 10 days later, on December 13th, Yamazaki led investigators to the river. At that location, the remains and belongings of Kawasaki-san, the first victim, were discovered. On January 5, 1995, the prefectural police finally questioned Sekine and Kazama about Kawasaki-san. They were arrested for corpse mutilation, feeling triumphant. After Yamazaki's confession, bone fragments, a protective amulet, a wristwatch, and other key items were found in the mountains, providing important physical evidence. The careful search for evidence just millimeters to centimeters wide paid off. There were also many twists and turns regarding the trial if we go into detail, but since it would take too long this time, I won't cover it. In 2001, the trial found Sekine and Kazama had conspired as equals. As a result, both of them were sentenced to death, and Yamazaki received a prison sentence of 3 years. Kasama said she was abused by Sekine and couldn't resist him, also denying involvement in the murders. She continues to claim her innocence, insisting that she was wrongfully convicted and is currently filing the latest appeal in the case. On the other hand, Sekin's health began to deteriorate around November 2016 and his sentence was never carried out. He died on March 27, 2017 at 75. He said anyone he disliked should be made invisible and claimed to have killed over 30 people. Sekine Minamoto was directly involved in this case. 9 years ago, in 1984, at least 3 men and women around him went missing. Amazingly, one of them even responded to the media. According to the testimony of the wife of the former self-defense force officer, she said that after she killed her husband during a marital quarrel, Sekine helped her make the body disappear. That's right. It's not hard to imagine that she cooperated with them out of guilt. This case attracted attention due to its extremely brutal nature, and in 2010, it became the basis for a work. The movie Cold Fish was released. If you want to know more details, please check it out. Well then, that's all for today.